Incidents at my school story. One in high school, one of my dad's distant relatives worked as a counselor. Everyone in the family knew you should never leave kids alone with him. I still remember my dad smacking me across the face when I was around 8 or 9 because I accepted a candy bar from him at a family event. Later, I noticed this same counselor getting a little too friendly with one of my friends. I warned my friend to stay away and explained why. Before long, word spread that I was the one claiming the counselor was a pedophile. I ended up with in-school suspension, and my parents were called to a meeting. As soon as the counselor learned my dad was coming, he conveniently had an emergency and disappeared. My dad told the principal, in no uncertain terms, that the man was a predator. He also warned that if the school ever allowed that counselor in the same room as me again, he'd tear the building apart brick by brick and beat the principal with every single one. Teachers treated me horribly afterward, accusing me of spreading disgusting lies. But midway through my sophomore year, the counselor vanished from campus. A week later, my dad told me he had been arrested for flashing children at a movie theater. Investigators found child pornography on his computer, some of which included current and former students from our school. Not one of the teachers who had condemned me apologized, except for my English teacher. He was a massive man with a booming voice who could silence an entire gymnasium without a microphone. When he heard the truth, he broke down in tears, saying he could never forgive himself for doubting me. Teachers rarely face accountability when they mistreat students, even when those students turn out to be right. Still, I'm just thankful. That man was finally caught. Story 2, our school was small, about 400 students total in K-12, so everyone knew everything. Over my 12 years there, we saw plenty of scandals. The school nurse was fired for stealing children's medication. The band teacher assaulted an 8th grader. The swim coach killed someone in a drunk driving incident. And the FBI once showed up after a student used his teacher mother's computer to threaten President Obama on Facebook. Story 3, in shop class, our teacher, who had suffered brain damage, suddenly began acting strangely. He twitched, mumbled incoherently, then, without warning, hurled a hammer across the room. It shattered a window and smashed another teacher's car windshield. He then screamed at us to get out. We fled, but soon after, we heard a blood-curdling scream. A few of us, myself included, ran back. The teacher had cut off his own thumb with a circular saw. I put his thumb on ice and administered first aid until help arrived. From that day forward, people called me Thumb. The teacher was retired and eventually institutionalized. I never saw him again. I genuinely hope he's doing better. Losing control of your own mind like that is one of my greatest fears. Story 4. Our English teacher once narrowly escaped being a victim of the son of Sam. She was walking home at night when a man got out of a car identical to his. He followed her until she reached her front door, then abruptly turned away. Later, when his diary was made public, it placed him in the exact same neighborhood at that very time. She did, in fact, have long dark hair back then. Story 5. During 10th grade Spanish class, our teacher got a call that put the entire school on lockdown. A middle school student had brought what he thought was a pipe bomb to the elementary building next door. He had left it in the bed of his truck, parked right outside the entrance. It turned out his father, who had intellectual disabilities, had given him a capped PVC pipe, and the boy brought it to school to ask the smart people if they knew what it was. It wasn't explosive at all, just poorly thought out. Story 6. When I was in 5th grade, our playground was closed, so we entertained ourselves on the field. Using large hollow plastic borders, we built a ring and started wrestling. None of the recess monitors spoke much English, so they didn't stop us. It quickly spiraled into chaos. 3 kids vomited during matches, 2 broke their arms, and 1 cracked his skull open. Blood was everywhere before staff rushed out. Nearly everyone was hauled to the principal's office, except me, since I managed to slip away. Our very own Fight Club. Story 7, just after graduation, we attended a rural farm party. One quiet but well-liked classmate tried to kidnap a girl. She was drunk, and he had gotten her into his truck. Luckily, her boyfriend found her before he could drive off. When police arrived, they discovered a murder kit in his truck. Rope, gloves, knives, the works. He was arrested and charged, though I don't remember the trial's outcome. It shocked everyone because he wasn't the loner type. He was liked. Story 8. At my Christian school, the head pastor was caught grooming a 13-year-old student. Her father discovered it after stumbling across her open Facebook chat. The pastor was arrested after an assault was confirmed. He served weekend jail time, was forced to submit a DNA sample, received probation, and lost his preacher accreditation. Despite that, he remained married to his wife, who was also a teacher, and later continued preaching at another church. The school eventually reopened in a new location. To this day, I can't believe how lightly he was punished. Story 9. In 8th grade, my best friend had an embarrassing moment in math class, which happened to include one of the most popular girls in school. After lunch, he desperately needed the bathroom, but the teacher wouldn't excuse him. By the time she relented, it was too late. Wearing gym shorts without underwear, he bolted for the hall, only for a piece of poop to slide down his leg and plop onto the floor in front of everyone. He cleaned himself up but returned to find the class lined up outside because his accident was considered a biohazard. Going commando in gym shorts was insane in my opinion, but that was his choice. In front of the person? Don't worry, OP, I got that same treatment when our whole class had to stand outside because of his turd ball stunt. Story 10. During my first year of high school, we had a class that covered all sorts of technical skills. The room was half workshop, half regular classroom, and it was taught by a pretty strict teacher. If you did your work and handed in homework, he was relaxed and easygoing. If you didn't, he could be a total pain. There was also one student who played the classic rebel, always late, always talking back, never doing homework. One day, our technical class was unusually quiet. That student had already argued with the teacher earlier about not having done any homework, so both of them were already tense. Out of nowhere, the kid asked to use the bathroom. The teacher told him no, since class would end in 10 minutes and he could go during break. Instead of dropping it, the student started a huge argument. Finally, the teacher lost patience and sent him to the special class, basically detention. The odd guy walked to the back door but suddenly stopped behind a concrete pillar and started peeing on it, in front of everyone. The teacher lost it. He screamed that this would be the kid's last day at school, stormed over, and dragged him out by the arm. We saw them heading into the principal's office down the hall, the student still with his pants down. Within minutes, the entire school knew. After that, the teacher was never quite as relaxed with anyone again. The student was banned from his classes and eventually dropped out that same year. Never heard of him again. Story 11. Another student, 18 at the time, went to the school library on a Saturday. Turns out the library was really just the geometry teacher's desk, and she was on it with him. Nobody could figure out why he did it. He was married, had a beautiful wife, a child on the way, and was considered a great teacher. Didn't end well for her. Back then, none of us really understood power dynamics. Instead, she got labeled as the girl who got McMillan fired and never lived it down. Personally, I always thought she was a jerk even before this. She used to make fun of me for having a big butt. I had a dump truck backside at 15, and once I shot back, well, at least I didn't hook up with a teacher. At the time, that comeback felt amazing, though now I regret it. OP, you were right. To feel bad, but still, if conversations had winners and losers, you definitely won that one, even if it was underhanded. Story 12. A girl, maybe 11 or 12, took her own life. She'd been bullied, stressed by school, and emotionally abused at home and by teachers. Some suspected physical or worse abuse, but nothing was proven. The school's response? They held a mandatory self-awareness assembly. It wasn't about her at all, just ads for fundraisers and merchandise. They even announced that talking at lunch was now banned. That was the last straw for most students. Only about a third stayed enrolled afterward, and sadly, more suicides followed. Story 13. One kid thought it was a good idea to pleasure himself in class after school, assuming everyone had gone. Our room faced the corridor with glass windows. He sat on a swivel chair, shirt off, pants around his ankles, and, no joke, his dong in a sock. He was about to finish when suddenly everyone, including the teacher, came back in after a seminar. The entire class saw him. Shocked doesn't even cover it. He left school soon after, maybe expelled, maybe by choice. The school was so embarrassed, they just quietly let him disappear. And honestly, OP, I don't feel that bad for him. He took a huge risk for no reason. Like, why not wait until you're home, or at least the bathroom? So many better options existed. To me, he got the consequences of his own bad judgment. Story 14. Our athletic director was caught having an affair with a team physician. Shockingly, both kept their jobs. A few years later, he was busted for skimming money from the boosters fund and got fired. Around the same time, our history teacher, who was already unstable, got hauled out of class by police one day and never returned. Something to do with a messy marriage, I guess. Story 15. This one involves me. At my bus stop, I once found a plastic toy rifle hidden in the bushes. I showed a friend, and of course, he grabbed it and started pointing it at traffic. Someone called the cops, and next thing we knew, the SWAT team was at the school. We only learned what happened later during assembly. This was just a few years after Columbine. My friend wasn't a bad kid, just a Kevin. He once lit a jar of rubber cement on fire in science class by playing with a lighter head he'd brought from home. Story 16. Two weird stories. First, a rumor. One teacher supposedly flashed a group of 7th graders in the bathroom. Nobody ever confirmed it, though. It was just whispered about. Second, a girl in my year supposedly gave her boyfriend a handy on the playground. They even used a bag to cover it. I didn't see it myself, but one of my friends overheard them bragging during class. Honestly, who does that in broad daylight, then talks about it loud enough for people to hear? But really, OP, for people like that, half the thrill is the risk of being caught. So maybe the bragging was just an extension of that. Or maybe it was just kids being dumb. Story 17. I moved around a lot, so I have several. One of the better ones, there was a goth kid at our school. Long trench coats, makeup, dyed hair, total anti-authority loner. After the Columbine shootings, he came to school dressed normal. When people asked, he said he didn't want to be disrespectful. A week later, he was back to his usual style. Later that year, he was failing a class badly, with no chance of passing. A gruff Vietnam vet teacher told him, "Wear a collared shirt and jeans, dye your hair back, no makeup, and I'll pass you." He agreed. Within a month, people started talking to him, cheering him on. Even he admitted, "I don't know why I kept doing that so long." He actually started making friends, and he walked with us at graduation. Story 18. Some of the cool kids discovered an old service tunnel under the music room. It led to a sealed-off exit near the parking lot. Inside, it was basically just an empty maintenance space. They used it to skip class. I went along once trying to be cool, but got stuck in the crawl space. Firefighters had to pull me out, and afterward, the hatch was sealed shut. We all got detention. And no, I was never allowed in the cool kid circle again. Honestly, though, sealing it was the right move. If no one had noticed me, I might have died down there. Story 19. Our athletic director was eventually caught with an 18-year-old senior. Somehow he kept his job. Later, he got beaten. bloody by a former student in the parking lot, so badly he ended up hospitalized. Meanwhile, during senior year, our class's cutest couple award went to, well, let's just say it was unanimous. Two girls were involved in an incident that became so serious the principal demanded it be removed from the yearbook, and he ended up being fired. Story 20. During the virtual year my school had, one of the most popular girls discovered that her boyfriend had cheated on her, with her best friend no less, and that the friend had become pregnant. Naturally, the relationship ended, and the friendship collapsed as well. The guy chose to stay with the pregnant friend, claiming he wanted to step up as a teen father. I attend the only public high school in the city, which means our student body is a mix of kids from wealthy gated neighborhoods and others from homes without running water. To manage the crowd, the school runs 3 different lunch periods, each assigned to a section of the upper building. When in-person classes resumed after the virtual year, the hallways were packed and tensions were already high. For the first few weeks, things stayed under control, but around week 6, everything escalated. On a Friday during third lunch, fights began breaking out one after another. Amid the chaos, the popular girl from earlier saw her opportunity. The pregnant girl was standing near the concrete stairwell outside the cafeteria that leads down to the bus zone. Her boyfriend, the baby's father, and their friends had stepped away to watch the commotion. Seizing the moment, the popular girl rushed at the pregnant girl and shoved her down the stairs. As the boyfriend returned, he witnessed the shove and charged at the popular girl. Before he could stop her, she ran down after her victim and deliberately stomped on the pregnant girl's stomach. The boyfriend then tackled her. Police and EMTs were called. The pregnant girl was rushed to the hospital, while both the boyfriend and the popular girl were detained for questioning. From what I heard, the baby ended up being okay. Honestly, this situation was disturbing. Anger at betrayal is one thing, understandable even, but trying to harm both a former friend and her unborn child is beyond cruel. It's hateful and twisted. There's no justification for that kind of violence. This feels like a good place to pause because of how intense the story is. Despite the heavy note, I hope you found these stories engaging. I also hope you have a great day or night, wherever you are. And if you've got your own school incidents to share, I'm sure you'll leave them in the comments. Until next time.